Hello, welcome to Breakaway with Dawn and Friends. Today I have an old friend, Hector. Hello, Hector.
Hey, Don.
I asked him to come on because we used to work together and we clicked, had a great relationship. He was such a great employee. And then he decided one day to leave us and be a trader. And I'm just like, and go back to school. So we kept in touch, and he has a lot going on, and I'm impressed. I love it. And I love to highlight people that are just doing themselves, doing them, and being brave. And I love to share stories and connect. So I think you guys are in for a real treat as well as I am. But I wanted to just, catch up with Hector and see what's going on and how quitting your job, I can't imagine how scary that is, making that decision to quit, go back to school. He had a plan. And so now we're going to follow up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yo, Hector,
Thanks.
how long has it been?
Uh, 2 years, two and a
That's
half
great.
years. Yeah, because I started school in 2022, and I quit in December of 2021. Yeah, so it's
Wow. Why does it
been it's
feel
been a
longer?
minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it was yesterday. To me, I
You,
was
to
yeah,
me.
I was deep in school for 2 years. So
Wow.
I guess that's a really good place to start, right? So
Yes.
I after I quit Q2, I decided to go back and get my bachelor's in biology. As a 29-year-old. Yeah,
Wow.
as a 29-year-old.
Okay. Okay.
And so I graduated in the spring of this year with my bachelor's in biology, and with honors, which I'm very proud of.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. And I decided right before I left Q2, actually, I had a lot of conversations with Dr. Alexander, which is one of the
Uh-huh.
doctors there. And
Yes. You were.
we had a lot of conversations, and it was the moment that I was like, oh, I think I want to go to med school. And so my entire bachelor's, I spent doing everything I could to get into med school. And so I've just applied to med school. I applied to two med schools just because my life is a little wild right now. And I'm waiting. I'm waiting for secondaries. But yeah, that's school was awesome, and then graduation kind of cemented all of the kids that I have now. So I have.
Yes. So can we talk about that, guys? You have to understand. He not only quit to go back to school, but he has a wife. And when we were together, working together, you had one kid, right?
Have one, yeah.
Yeah, you had one.
My wife and I together have one
Yes.
6 year old. Yes,
Yes. And then, so imagine you guys, he had one kid, and now you have how many?
I have six kids, five kids and one godchild that's at my house all the time. Yeah,
So is that a seven? Is that or that's
six.
including
It's six.
total
It's
six?
six,
Okay.
including my
Yes.
godchild. But yeah,
Yes. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. So he's doing
yeah.
all of that and taking care of all of these kids.
Yeah, and I'm a stay at home dad still, which I love. My wife works really hard, and she's a really good job, and so I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna
Yes.
kind of support her through that, and I actually do work for her. I do administrative work for her sometimes, so some on the
Nice.
side just to help her out. But yeah, I think it was a year after I had quit. Yeah, so it was like 20. We're in
23,
2024, 23,
right? Yeah.
22. So in 22, we were living kind of on our own, and then my in-laws were like, hey, move back, we have this, we had like a whole housing plan. We're like, sure,
Hmm.
we'll do it.
Hmm.
So we moved back in with our in-laws, but at the same time my brother-in-law was going through his divorce or
Hmm.
separation with his wife, and so we kind of started to hang out with my nephew a lot more, but then it became really consistent, and it was every weekend, it was every Wednesday through Sunday, because my wife's brother was a little less present than I think
Uh-huh.
we would have
Uh-huh.
liked. Um and yeah, that's fine, sorry.
That's okay.
So then so then he was a little less present than we would have liked, and so because of that, we asked his mom. We said, listen, we're already doing this like all
Hmm.
week. Why don't we
Hmm.
just move in together? We don't want to live at my in-laws house anymore. And she said she agreed. So she said, yeah. And so we moved to Pasadena with my sister, so my wife and my kid,
Mhm.
our two dogs,
Mhm.
and then my sister-in-law and her kid. And so we
Mhm.
decided, as adults, as three adults, we decided to co-parent the children together. So then
Yeah.
I got an extra one. I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. I have two
Yeah.
kids. I wanted to have another one, so we tried to have another one last July, but we had an ectopic pregnancy, and unfortunately, we had to terminate.
Yes.
So because of that, is it dead? Can you charge it in the room? Can you find there's a cube in the kitchen. Or here. 1 second. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Okay, I'm back.
All right.
Um so then so we lost the baby in July of 2023. And it was really devastating. It was really
Yeah.
sad. And then my nieces and nephews started coming over more.
Okay.
And then initially it was like, oh, it's Tio Hector and Tia Carla. And it was very much Tia and Tio. Because my 9-year old calls me Nino because I'm their godparent, they asked me, they were like, well, can we call you Nino? And I was like, sure, I can be your godparent. I'm not assigned your godparent, but
Mhm.
I'll do it. They have godparents.
Mhm.
So they started calling me Nino and Nina. At the same time, their mom started to kind of get her life together. So she went back to school, but she has 3 kids. And so we're like, here, we'll just help you out with the 2 older ones because the baby is still really attached to you, so he can go to
Mhm.
daycare. It's okay.
Mhm.
He's
Mhm.
turning 2 in August. He's a roller coaster. So the
Oh.
other 2 older ones are 8 and 7. We're like, oh, we'll just help you out. Don't worry about it. So she started dropping them off. And we're like, okay, that's cool. Once here and there every other
Mhm.
weekend,
Mhm.
and we're
Mhm.
like, and we started to joke like, oh, we're just my wife and I are just your baby daddy because you're just dropping them off every other weekend.
Uh-huh.
And then starting this year, it became way more consistent. It was like we were picking them up from school, they were coming home and sleeping over with us. Like it was just more engaged. Like we were more engaged in her little family.
Mhm.
And so the summer hit, the kids are off of school. She's my I call her my cousin, which is she's my wife's cousin. My cousin,
Mhm. Mhm.
she's a full-time beauty school. And so we're like, all right, girl, like just for the summer, this is the plan. We'll put them in summer camp. They'll stay at our house. And so all summer we've just had the kids very
Mhm.
like for like a month. We just
Mhm.
and they're staying at our house. And so we are having conversations again about like, okay, well, what does it look to co-parent now that you're getting your life together? You don't have a baby daddy. That you
Mhm.
don't have the kids don't have a father. Why don't we
Mhm.
just help you out? Your family
Mhm.
doesn't help you. We're here. And
Mhm.
so now we've solidified that this is a co-parenting because initially it was just like we're godparents. We've
Mhm.
solidified that it is a co-parenting arrangement with her so that we can help her out. And then, of course, my wife and I have always wanted a ton of kids, and it's always been so
Yeah.
hard for us to have a lot of kids. We've had
Right.
miscarriages, and we've only had one
Right.
baby.
Right.
And so now we have my 6-year old, then we have a 7-year old, an
Mhm.
8-year old, a
Mhm.
9-year old,
Wow.
and a soon to be 10-year old. Oh, wait, six. Yeah, it's the 4 of them. Yeah, so it's 9, 8, 7, and 6. And they love it because they're literally a year apart. And they all will turn a year together. So everybody's just going to be a year, which is just really
Wow.
cute. And then we have the baby who I'm going to get paid for to take care of as like his daycare, but also help co-parenting him. And he calls me Papa, but I have to remind him that I'm his Nino and not his dad. So I'm
Aw.
like Nino, but he's 22 months, so he'll be 2 in August. And so that's 5 kids. That's 5 that I'm co-parenting, and so I play video games with them. We go camping together. I meal prep with them, I cook for them, I feed them, I do homework with them. I'm like, especially
Sweet.
during the summer right now, I'm like, all right, everybody has to get on reading level because you guys aren't on reading level. And so I
Right.
sit and I read with them and I teach them. And it's a lot of work on top of applying to med school. So it was a lot.
How are you balancing that?
I don't have a job. Right. So like this is my job, right? So
Yes.
be like other than school and the kids, like that's it. And so a lot of it is like and a lot of I think is just like hanging out with the kids is really fun.
Mhm.
And then so just giving them a good amount of structure so then while they're in their like they're on tablets doing reading things or whatever they're doing, then I'm doing whatever administrative work
Okay.
I need to do. And then
Okay.
when we all get off our devices, then we're all outside, and then I'm,
Okay.
doing. And so we kind of my wife is extremely type A. I am not. I have ADHD. I am not. I am not a type A. I'm not a schedule guy. It's really hard
That's
for me
why
to
I'm
do that.
asking you. How are you managing that?
My wife is wonderful. And I think it's fun with the kids because their attention span is really short, so we can
Mhm.
jump from thing to
Mm,
ding. And then
mhm,
they're also, there's a lot of them. So, and then they're so
mhm,
close. So I'm like, go outside for 2 hours.
mhm,
Just go outside. I'm going to make food. I'm going to cook. I'm going to clean. I'm going to do the
mhm,
things. And so, and we also, because they're all old enough to do chores, they
mhm.
all help
Oh,
around
yeah.
the house.
Oh, good job.
They get they all get themselves ready in the morning and get themselves breakfast. They all, for lunchtime, I make lunch and I'll serve them, but they all wash their own dishes. They do their laundry. Like I'm like, okay, older ones, like the 9 and the 8-year-old, I'm all right, put the
Mhm,
load in, switch the
mhm,
load, take the load out. Even when they, because the three that we added on, they do go home. So like
mhm,
she moved it about 20 minutes away from us. So they do go home.
mhm.
So when it's just our two, I'm like, all right, guys, take the laundry out, and I make them fold. I'm like, fold your laundry and put it away.
Love
My
it.
wife, my wife hates it because they put it away like it looks like a tornado went through their drawers. But I'm like, at least they're doing it, and it's weight off of me, right? And
Yes.
so, but and my wife is disabled, and so she has a pretty strong disability, or just chronic pain, and so on top of navigating the kids, I'm also navigating my wonderful disability, my disabled wife. But yeah, but
Jeez,
I don't
Hector.
have a job. This is my job. Like, this is my job. And
Yes.
I
No,
think,
it is. It is.
and for me, like, I was raised by my aunties, so I didn't have parents, and so for me, it's like, it feels really good to give back in a way that,
Mhm.
like, I'm like, if I wasn't, not that if I wasn't there they would have a pretty cruddy life, but I'm making it better.
Yes.
Like, and it's not their fault that, like,
No.
they're just kids, right?
No.
And
And it
so
does take
if
a
I
village.
can, yeah, and then so and it really does take a village. And so it's like, yeah, this is all really hard, and my wife and I have to constantly look at each other and go, this is not forever, right? Kids grow up, they
Mhm,
become teenagers, they become
mhm.
20-year-olds. Like, my sister, who we fostered when she was 15, she moved out a couple
Oh,
during the pandemic.
yes. I
So
remember.
she was here, yeah. So technically, if I add her, then yeah, it's a total of 7. But she was here this weekend, and she's turning 20. She
Oh
just
my
turned 20. We celebrated her
God.
20th birthday, and we're her forever home. So we took her in at
Yes,
15.
actually, yeah, I take that back because when you were with us, yes, you had your son, but then you
Yeah,
also had your sister, which you were like,
yeah,
parenting in a way,
yeah,
like a guy.
yeah. And we
Yeah,
still parent her.
yeah. Oh my
I gave her my car. I taught her how to drive. She was on our insurance. She came, and I have to give her advice, like boyfriend advice. I'm like, all right, if you're gonna do this again, how are you gonna be different? And we're like, she came and she didn't visit anybody else but me and my
God.
wife. And so, like, and whenever she's here, I think the first time she had come, and we picked her up, and it had been a little while that she had come because she's working in 20 and living her best life.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, wow, you guys feel so, like, peaceful. And I was like, girl, that means you're home. And she was like, really? Is
Oh,
that what home feels like? I'm
I
like,
love
yes, I
that.
promise. Yeah.
Home is where
And
your
this,
heart is. It's not a place.
exactly.
Yes.
And even then, even like this weekend, she was like, hey, can my friend come? And we didn't even see the text message. And she was like, hey, my friend's here. And I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. Like, it's fine. She's like, I just really want them to meet you. I'm like, all right, she can meet us. Her friend ended up leaving with her boyfriend,
Uh,
but in somewhere else. But yeah, so with my sister, it's a lot of us. And so yeah, I have a big family. My wife and I have always wanted a big family.
I
And so
love
it's
that.
really great to just love. And we wanted to foster. We've always wanted to foster. And here I am.
Look at my shirt.
Yeah, that says love.
My shirt says love with a heart on it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
Oh, I love
yeah,
that, Hector.
I know.
Where do you think you
It's
find this drive?
I think I honestly think it's because I wasn't loved as a kid the way that I should have been loved, and
Mm,
so, like, I just want to give it back. Like, I'm just like, you deserve it, even if you're an 8-year old who's a jerk. Like, it's not your fault you're a jerk. I
Yeah.
want to make you be a better, like, we need to make you be a better person. One, for
Mhm.
this world
Mhm.
needs better people, but
Yes.
also, like, for yourself. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want you to go through the things that I went through. You don't need
Mhm.
to be in an abusive relationship because you saw your
Mhm.
parents in it. You don't need to yell at people when you get angry. You can breathe things out. You can just be better. And they love me so much, which is hard sometimes because I do get pulled in like 10 different directions.
Yes.
Um, and so I have to do one-on-one times with kind of all of them. Um, but yeah, a lot of it is just wanting to give, is just love. It's literally just, I just want you to feel
Mm.
loved. Because sometimes just a little bit of love can change your life for the
It
better.
does. It does. I'm a firm believer in that. I mean, I've had words, just words, spoken to me that has changed my life, you know? So
Yeah.
I do believe
Yeah.
that. Well,
Yeah.
so now how do you find time to have any kind of self-care to recharge? Like,
Um, so while I was in school, no, everything went to school. It was really hard. That just because school was a priority. I think I'm done with school and don't have anything to do. So sometimes there's moments where I'm like when let's say like all the kids are at either their
mm,
godparents' house or they're back at their parents' house.
mhm,
Because our kid does have godparents that he goes
mhm,
with. So he's like, we're
nice.
like, here, take him, godparent. We need a break. And then we're like, here, cousin, take back your kids for the weekend. And
Yeah.
then so there are moments where I love walking my dog, so I do walk her. She is another stretch of mine, but she doesn't talk back to me, which is nice. So I get to walk
What is
her and
that?
hang out with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get to take her to the park, and she doesn't really complain about it being hot or wanting to go home or wanting snacks, which is
Yeah.
nice. Um, so I do that. I really love Star Wars, and so
Mhm,
recently I've kind of I stay up later than I should, but I end up just binging some Star Wars or
mhm,
watching TV or
mhm,
reading a book.
mhm,
That's
mhm.
the only thing that I can do. My wife and I are actually we just had this conversation about what do we do for ourselves
Yes.
that doesn't involve anybody else. And so
Yes.
my wife smokes weed because she has a chronic pain, and so it's one of her. It's she gets to sit outside and she smokes and
Yes.
she chills
Yes.
and
Release.
nobody bothers her. And I'm like, go for it. I am allergic to marijuana, so I cannot smoke weed. So I'm always really jealous. I'm like,
Wow.
ah.
Uh-huh.
So and I'm like, oh, I want to do this, and so we signed up the kids for Aztec dance. I signed up for the three older ones, the 9, 8, and 7-year old. My 6-year old, it's too loud. Aztec
Mhm,
dancing is a lot of drumming, a lot of,
mhm,
and
mhm.
he just is not about that life. Um, and so and I'm doing it with them, and so part of that is like it's a physical activity that we've been
Mhm,
doing, and it's really nice to like go and be in the same space with them. But
mhm.
because it's a constant movement, like I'm not babysitting them,
Right?
it's kind of it feels like it's taking care of myself. Like
I like that. Yeah,
even
'cause
though we're in the
you are
same space.
releasing though, right? Dancing is releasing,
Yeah.
so
And we're in the same space, so I'm
yeah.
watching them, but
Yes.
it's nice, but I'm not babies. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting like I'm not yeah, it's
I mean, you
interesting.
can share
It's
your
fun.
hobby. That's still something for
Yeah.
you, right? So you can share
Yeah.
your hobby.
Yeah.
Wow. So
But yeah,
wow. So obviously it doesn't sound like there was any regret because that was a big life change, right? Like, okay, you know
it
what?
was.
I'm going to let go of my 9 to 5 and I'm gonna go back to school and
Yeah.
that had to be
Yeah, that was hard.
scary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we went from a one income house to a two-income house, and that was really nice. And we
Right.
lived in a really nice
Yes.
apartment, and
Yes.
we paid a significant amount of money for the apartment we lived in because it
Yes.
was in Chatsworth and there was a
Mhm.
view.
Mhm.
And then when I quit, and my wife was totally on board, we like that next month we were like, wait a minute,
What did we do?
I'm not getting money anymore.
Uh-huh.
And we were like, okay, let's do the math. And so we would do the math, and I'm like, okay, let me just get a job. And she's like, but if you get a job, who's gonna take care of the kid? She's
Mhm.
like, well, if you get a job, who's gonna like? When are we gonna eat? Like, are we gonna eat
Mhm.
out because you're gonna get home at 10 o'clock?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we always did the math, and I was like, it just makes more sense for me to stay home, even if I'm in school. And I
Mhm.
tried. There was a month where I was like, you know what? I'm gonna apply to Starbucks. They pay for ASU. students to go
Oh,
online. I was like,
okay.
cool, I'm going to pay for my schooling. I don't have to take out loans.
Yeah.
I did it for a month. That same month, my wife ended up having to get surgery on her back. I was in a summer chemistry class, so it was 2 classes in 6 weeks,
Jeez.
chemistry and chemistry lab, plus her surgery, plus my job, plus
Jeez.
the kid being in summer, so he wasn't even in school. And
Right.
it lasted a month, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I can't do it. Like, if I want to survive the next 2 years, which is my goal, I didn't I didn't quit my last job to make minimum wage and to
Right.
not
Right. Right.
bring myself up, right? Like, the
Right.
biggest thing was, okay, I'm gonna quit, go to my bachelor's, and then I'm gonna move up in life. So then I was just like, this doesn't make sense. And so I quit. And I was like, that's okay.
Yeah.
But it was so, even now it's still hard. It's still like, damn, like I had a really good job. Sometimes I'm like, man, I could have just stayed. It would have been really nice. But
Yeah,
it
because
does
you
feel
did have the
really,
best boss ever, you know.
I did. I had a really good boss. I had a really good understanding boss. She was
Yes,
funny.
you
She's understanding.
did.
Yeah. But you know what? It was it's one of my favorite jobs, but it was also like such a good experience
Mm.
that I think influenced the ways in which I approached school. Because then I went into school being like, oh, I know lab stuff. Right. And it was kind of
Yeah,
nice to be like, oh, I've seen this or I've heard of
yeah,
this or
yeah.
and we even got to stain like bacterias and cells. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
this is ICC, but we did HIC, right? And I got to kind of like, it was, I think, and you say this all the time, I don't believe in God, but I do believe in the universe.
Yes.
And the universe kind of put me into this place where it was like, find this random job,
Mhm,
random. Okay.
mhm.
I was like, I just want the base lab job. And you're like,
Yeah.
no. And I was like, all right, we're going to try it. And then I did it for a year. It felt really good and also really hard, right? Because I was struggling with my mental health
Yes.
drastically.
Yes.
And then I went to school and I was like, this is what the universe does.
Mhm,
Everything flowed.
mhm,
So nothing, even though I took a break from school, because I did go to community college, then I did 2 years, then a year working with you,
mhm,
and then 2 years. So I did take a break during my
mhm.
undergrad, but that break didn't feel like a waste of time. It
No.
definitely feel like it added to my schooling, which is really cool.
Yes.
But it was hard. But it was hard, Don. It
Yes.
was hard.
I
It
know,
was
and
hard
that's
to
why.
quit.
Yes, and that's why I had because yeah, I had to ask you because I mean that's to me that's life changing, you know. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people fear will hold them back, and so
Yeah.
I wanted to share your story because you said I love this job, I love working here, but I need to do this. And I was
Yeah.
like, then you do you, boo. Like you go do
Yeah.
it. You know, do it,
Yeah.
Hector was, I mean, you learned fast, like you did so well, like, so it was hard to lose but I did see
Thanks.
towards the end, like, yeah, he's not in it. I can see that you're struggling. You're not in this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, we had the conversation, Hector, you got to figure this out because,
Yeah.
you're not all in and I can see that. And so we had a nice honest conversation and I'm like, you got to figure this out,
Yeah.
and you did. And so you're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna quit, go back to school. But what is the end goal? So now, like, you're trying to get into medical school, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to go to medical school. I mean, the end goal is to be a family doctor.
Yes.
Ideally, I want to do gender affirming care for
Yes.
folks, just like in general, right? I think gender affirming care gets a lot of rap. It's like, oh, it's for trans people, but gender affirming care is also for people who are not trans.
Yeah.
Um, it's absolutely for everyone, and
Yes.
so that's kind of my goal. I really want to pursue family medicine. I like that one on one, the
Mhm.
individualness of medicine. I really want to be a DO. DOs, I don't know if you've heard of DOs, but DOs are doctors of osteopathic medicine. MDs
Oh,
are doctors of allopathic medicine. They're both doctors. They both do the exact same thing. But the way that DOs get trained is more of
I
uh,
love
a
that.
holistic method, and then on top of that, they do more preventative medicine, and they also do tissue
Um,
manipulation, which is really cool versus MDs. They just do things. They just don't get that same training. That's what it is added onto the other one. And so I
ah,
really want to do that because I like the idea of like one human, right? So like each human has their own conditions, has their own life,
Mhm.
even though they can check boxes like, oh, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts. You're like, yeah, but what are your conditions? What
Mm.
is it that leads you to feel that way?
Exactly.
Why? Do you live in the hood, right, where you're next to freeways, so then your asthma's worse? But can I compare you to someone who lives in suburbia where there are no freeways and they have to drive 45 minutes to get to a freeway, right? So I can't. So I think I really like that. So I did apply to a DL school. So I'm kind of really hoping that they say yes.
Wow. I think that's
Um,
more fitting for you. I think that's where your
yeah,
passion is going to be.
yeah.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah. And right, and I think I shout out some doctors kind of at the beginning of the year, and a lot of them were like, well, people get into med school and then they don't always like do what they want to do. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, unless something in med school is like, wow, this is 100%, I'm going to change my mind.
Mhm.
I'm going to do surgery or I'm going to do dermatology. Like
Yeah.
somehow I get influence and so, or I might do pathology, right? Like one of them,
Uh-huh.
I really I
I don't
doubt
think
that's
so.
going to
I doubt
happen. I
that. No.
doubt it.
No. I
Yeah.
think this is your calling, Hector.
I think so too. I
I do.
really do.
What I know of
I
you,
really do.
yes, I think that's your calling. But,
Yeah.
I do want to say, though, remember, it's not about the end result, it's the journey.
Right.
So,
Right.
just try to enjoy this and be open because the universe will speak to you, and
Yeah.
you have to be open to receive, because a lot of times I
Yeah.
think people plan and they just have this vision and then they're blocking blessings. They're not, opening themselves to receiving. And then your journey ends up going just a little longer than what it,
Yeah.
right?
And yeah, I mean, I'm also an older student, so for sure
Mhm.
I've seen that happen. And I
Mhm.
think even with like I didn't do too well on my MCAT, and so that really affects the amount of schools that I can apply to. But even when I saw my MCAT score, I was super bummed and I was like, damn. And I was like, well, maybe I just don't apply. I was like, I do
Mhm.
have a lot going on anyway, right? I have all
Mhm.
these kids that I'm trying to just like
Pouring.
nurture.
Mhm.
Right. I'm pouring all of this so that they
Mhm.
can so that they can see better.
Yes.
And so they can experience love. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, let's do that. And then I'm like, and then I get a job. And my wife and I get a little bit because I can always apply to a job and I
Yeah.
can or like a lab job, right?
Yeah.
A lab job I can make decent money.
Yes.
I've done it. And now that I have my bachelor's in biology, I can have like a more sciencey like
Yeah.
position where I'm like
Yeah.
doing like I don't know
Bench
science.
work. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, doing bench work, and so I kind of get to do that, and so I know that and that will just add to my application later on. So I'm not super set on it, and even my wife and I were like talked about applying to schools outside of the state or outside of Southern California, and I'm like I can't like I have this commitment to these kids. My wife and I have these commitment to these kids
Yeah.
where we can't just pull up and leave anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, if it was just the three of us with me, my wife, and the kid that we have, absolutely. All the kids are going to the same school, and he goes, now that my cousins are going to this school, can I move schools? And I was like, no. He's like,
Oh.
and he's like, but I want to try all the schools. And I was like, no, you can't move. The whole point of them going to your school is so that everything is easier, sir. You
Yes.
cannot just pick and choose. But he's really, he reminisces on the days that he lived alone. He reminisces on
You
the
know,
days where it was just
and
the three
thank
of us.
you for bringing that up because I wanted to ask that. Like, I can't imagine,
Yeah.
that has to impact your son, good or bad, but it has to, right? So I did want
Yeah.
to ask that. Thank you. I did forget to ask that because I think you remember I have guardianship of my niece.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so, oh my God, that turned our house upside down,
Yeah.
but my kids were older. So when that happened, um, and yeah, so how does your son deal with all that? Sharing mom and dad.
Yeah, sharing mom and dad is hard for him. It
Yeah.
is it is one of the biggest he started to do this thing where he gets more ownership over his stuff. He's like, this is my
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Yeah.
This is my room. This is my bed.
Yes.
And this was a kind of at the beginning where we weren't super sure what was happening. They were just kind of spending the night for the summer, and it was just like we were being auntie and uncle, right? Nina and Nino. And then so what my wife and I decided is that we decided to take them on dates. And so we do individual dates because and I'm his favorite person in the whole world. Him and I have been together for 6 years.
Yes.
He's turning
Yes.
7 nonstop. Right? I've been a stay-at-home dad for
Mhm. Mhm.
7 years. And
Mhm.
so he's like sometimes he'll sit on my lap and he's like, this is my dad. Like he's like, or the kids don't have dads, right? And so, and they have absent fathers.
Mhm.
They're or they're in and out of their lives. And
Mhm.
so he'll say things like, well, my dad's always with me, like, right? And he gets a little shady, and so we have to remind him not to be so shady. And I'm like, dude, like, like,
Love
we
is
don't say
love. Yeah.
I'm like, we don't say everything that comes to our mind, right? And
Yeah.
my kid
Yeah.
is one of those kids that says everything that comes to his mind. He's like, boom, in my mind, out. And I think what's sweet with him is that, like, because he's been with me for so long, he knows how I parent. And so he doesn't take me personal in the ways in which I
Mhm.
have to adjust with the other kids.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I can tell him straight up and be like, dude, not cool. And he's like, all right, I heard you. I hear you, right?
Mhm.
And him and I have that relationship. But it is hard on him. And so I do try, like this morning, I forgot that we were building Legos yesterday, and instead one of my other kids, he slept over instead of going home with his mom because he didn't want to go home. And I was like, yeah, just stay, it's fine. And we play video games till like 9:30. We don't ever stay up that late. And I was like, it's cool, let's just stay up that late. It's fine. He can't stay up past 9 because then he loses his mind. So it was 9:30. He's crying. He's like, why did I not do my Lego set instead? And so this morning I said, okay, tomorrow morning, me and you will work on our Lego set. Just me and you. Ethan will be somewhere
Mhm.
else. It'll be fine. And so the two of us sat on our bed. He came into my room last night and slept with me. And then this morning when he woke up, he was like, I brought the Lego set. Are you ready? And I was like, okay, well, we have to like do our morning routine. Let's clean. Let's like make the bed and then we'll do it. And we did. So we did it for like an hour. We built his little Sonic that he got from Legoland.
Nice.
And so I just try to do that with him, especially because he is also the youngest, besides the baby, but he is the youngest of the four.
Yeah.
Um, and so I do give him more than I do the other kids. I expect more of the other kids because I'm like, you guys are older.
Answer.
Him, I'm like, oh, it's okay. Here, he's like, can you pick my clothes? I'm like, sure, I'll pick your clothes, right? And I still do that for him.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, but it is hard on him, and he does reminisce of the good old
Mm,
days.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but so do I. So do I. So we share that, right? I had
I
a
know
bunch of oops
it's a tough
babies.
balance between what you would, like to do, and then you have it, you guys had
Yeah,
it's so simple. But
yeah,
then this is something you guys desire too. So there you have to
yeah,
find that balance.
yeah,
So
yeah.
wow, well
And
you're
it's
teaching
weird.
him a great lesson, by the way.
Yeah, and what do you think that
Son,
lesson is?
right? Like there is no boundaries when it comes to love,
Yeah,
right? So you guys
yeah,
have love to give. It doesn't matter that you're not my child. It doesn't matter
yeah,
what you went through. It doesn't matter what you have and don't have. I'm here to love you. And
yeah,
that's a very, very good message to your
yeah,
son, to
yeah,
show him, no, we can give what we can, like it's
yeah,
okay, we'll make it work. Like, believe it or not, like he can't articulate that now, but later he
right,
will, and he'll have
yeah,
appreciation. Like, you're showing him how to treat people, how to care, how to give, how to love, like
yeah,
without saying it. You're doing it by actions. So
yeah,
no,
yeah.
and he,
Well,
like I
we
said,
do say it. Well, on
no,
top of
no,
it,
but
so
what
we
I
do.
mean is your actions speak, is what I'm saying,
Yes.
outside of whatever
Yeah.
they hear, right? So it's not just
Yeah.
about, because I'm my love language is action, acts of
Yeah.
service, right? So I say it, but I mean not all the time, but you're going to see it in what I do for you. So
Yeah.
I feel, you're being that role model. Like, you have to show even these other kids, like, my gosh, like, can you imagine 10 years from now, they're going to look back and say, thank you. Like, and,
Yeah.
they have a bond, and I'm telling you, you're teaching a very valuable
Yeah.
lesson.
Yeah. And I think so. There was a moment where, so for my graduation, we weren't gonna take the two other kids, the 7 and 8 year old, and it was just gonna be my two kids, the 6 year old and the 9 year old, and then we were
Hmm.
just gonna go to Arizona because we went to Arizona to graduate. I went to Arizona to
Hmm.
graduate to walk, and they were at my house kind of every other weekend at that point. And then I looked at them, and then I was like, "Do you guys want to go to my graduation?" And they were like, "Yes!" And then they like lost their mind. And so what's really cool is that for every graduation that I've ever had, I've had two graduations. I buy myself a pair of Jordans. It's a thing. It's like a, so for my med school application, and then I wear my Jordans, and that's what I walk on stage with.
Yes.
Um, and so I bought my Jordans this year, and then I really love them. They're yellow and black. And my oldest goes, "Hey, can I buy the same Jordans as you, so we can match. And I was like, well, if we buy them for you, we have to buy them for the little one, and that's a lot of money. And he was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, we have savings. So he organized that the two of them would then pull out of their savings to get the same shoes as me.
Wow.
When the other two kids heard that they were coming and that we were having the same shoes, they both pulled out of their savings so that they can have matching shoes with me. So then it was me and the four of them, and we
Oh.
all had matching shoes
Oh.
at my graduation. So like that, the whole the weekend that we were there, we all wore the same Jordans, and we went to the Grand
Oh.
Canyon in them, we went to dinner in them, and people would be like, wow, you and your kids have the same shoes. I'm like, yeah, me and my kids have the same shoes. It looks like we have a ton of money, but they all took it out of their own bank accounts, I swear, because I cannot afford that many Jordans. I was like, I'm a college graduate, like, it's not but it was so. But they went on the trip with us, and it was that moment where they were all like, I want to graduate, I want to go to ASU, and they were
Yes.
like, I want to be a Sun Devil. And the whole time we were there, they were like throwing up their pitchforks. So that's what they do at ASU, they throw up their pitchforks because they're Sun Devils. They're like posing with pitchforks. They're like, pitchforks up. And the four of them are just in this world of like, wow, we want to graduate. That was really cool. And that was kind of the moment that I looked at them, and I talked to my wife that night, and I was like, we have to do this. Like, we have to take them. Like, we can't think about them not as our kids anymore. This is it's deeper than us, right? It's deeper than that. And so but it was such a precious moment. But to your point, yes, I do show in action, but the crazy part is that we also sit and have family circles. So we have to circle up. We have family meetings, and we sit and we say, this is what's going to happen, this is how this is happening, this is why this is happening. And we're very clear and very honest. So on top of all of the like unspoken love of like video game time and park time and pool time and all of that, there's also these very real moments of like, hey, I love you, and this is not, I'm not going to abandon you, because they're the two that they have a harder time with abandonment because they really love their father, and he just one day was gone. And so I look at them, and they're just like, okay, cool. And what's interesting is that I was abandoned. And so when I have these conversations with them, there's nothing that I don't share. I mean, obviously there's age appropriate things that I don't share, but there's like, I'm like, hey, my parents abandoned me. And they're like, why? Why don't you have a mom? Why don't you have a dad? And I'm like, these are the reasons why. They didn't love me the way that the parents should love their kids, right? I mean, they loved me in their own way, but that wasn't how they should have loved me. And so, and they're just like, wow, like you were abandoned and you love us and we were abandoned. And so they kind of are putting these pieces together, because we in our house, one of the biggest things that we talk about is trust and openness and honesty. So it's like, I'm going to be open with you. Like, I'm not going to hide my life.
Right.
This is my life.
Right.
And I want you to trust that I'm going to be honest with you, and I need to trust that you're going to be honest with me, because they are liars. These kids are liars. Kids love to lie. And they love to hide. And so I'm like, you're not. So so between all of it, it is it really is a lot of like showing this aspect of love, and it's also like talking about what this even means. Like, what does it mean for a kid, And letting them be really honest and be really sad. I'm like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. These are these dates, right? These one-on-one. Even if this date looks like riding up down the block on our skateboard. Sometimes that's what the date is. We're just like, it's just me and you, one-on-one, riding up and down on our skateboards with my little old shin splints, because I got shin splints and bad knees. I'm like, we're working it out.
Oh my God, yes. But that's so good, because, you teaching them vulnerability, which is, talking about how they feel, what makes them happy, sad, mad. Like, those are really key. What is it? Key. Oh my God, I'm losing my words.
Characteristics.
Thank you. For someone to develop, So seriously, Hector, but I'm telling you, like, even that you do all of that, I'm telling you, like, we'll say things and they don't always match up with what we do, or vice versa, or I'm just, there is some stuff, just your actions, I'm telling you, it really does make a difference, for these kids, So I love that. I love that you're making this world a better place, one person at a time.
At least these 5 will be better. six, seven. Because we do get, so my godchild is fun. He is really our godchild, so he comes just for the fun stuff. I don't have to parent him the way that I
Uh-huh.
parent everyone else.
Uh-huh.
And he yesterday his mom was like, "Hey, I don't have childcare. Can I drop him off?" And I was like, "Yeah." We were like, "Absolutely, drop him off." So yesterday we had my sister visiting, which is my 20-year-old.
Uh-huh.
Then we had our 9-year-old, our 8-year-old, our 8-year-old godson, the 7-year-old, the 6-year-old, and we had the 2-year-old because there was no daycare, and so we had all seven of them at our house. And keep in mind, I live in a back house. It's a 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and we're in a back house, and we fit. And his my godchild was like, he heard that the other two moved really close to us, and he was like, he asked his mom, he was like, "Well, can I move in with my Nino and Nina?" And she's like, "No, their house is too small." He's like, "Well, if it was too small, why would we all fit?" She's like, "You can't do that." And his family's well off, so he has that's the kid's rich auntie, so which is great. She sends them to expensive summer camps. She's wonderful. But she's got money. We
Yeah,
don't got money. So he's like, "I don't understand why you think it's small, mom. Like, obviously we all fit." And but it's just
I
fun.
love
Like, it's, yeah,
that.
it's just, I think I'm really excited to pursue my dreams with all of our kids. My wife and I have always wanted a lot of kids,
Mm-hmm.
and to just be able to like really show them that, like, even if you're pursuing your dreams, even if you're working really hard, you
Mm-hmm.
can still send love, right? Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I don't have parents, but my wife's parents are like, "Well, we worked really hard," and she's like, "Well, why didn't you show me love though?" Right? Like, even if you worked really hard, why were you still so mean, right? And so even in those moments of like working with her, I'm exhausted, done. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
am, this morning my wife has been letting me sleep in because I typically used to wake up early to walk the dog, and now I'm like, I can't wake up early anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
she's letting me sleep in, but I am, because I'm up, I'm with them, right, until 9 o'clock where they're going to sleep. During the summer, during the school year,
Right.
they're out
Right.
at 7:30. Where do
Right.
we do 7:30 sleep time? We're
Yeah.
like, "You're
Right.
in bed." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I don't know what you're doing. You don't have to sleep. You just need to be in your bed at
Yeah.
7:30." Um, but it is, and my wife and I, and we really work on, like, we're human,
Mm-hmm.
so we mess up, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there was a moment where, like, I yelled at one of the kids, and I was really mean to her, and I looked
Mm-hmm.
at her and she got really sad. And so
Mm-hmm.
I let her cry. We have a calming corner in our tiny house. We do have a calming corner. So they go to their calming corner, and I went over there and I was like, "Hey, I'm really sorry that I yelled at you. That was not acceptable."
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize. Like, it was, I should have not done that. And you can see in her face, she was like, an adult
Mm-hmm.
is apologizing to me for being mean? Like, what? And she just kind of was like, I was like, "Can I give you a hug? Is that okay?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I gave her a hug, and her body just relaxed and was like,
Oh.
"Wow." Because every time people are mean to her, they don't go and
Yes.
apologize to
Yeah.
her,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because
Wow.
adults don't do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just, I'm human. My wife is human. We make mistakes, and
Yes.
but our kids are this is what we want. My wife and I had Korean barbecue dates. We've been together for 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
11 years ago, we would have 12 years ago, when we were friends, we would have Korean barbecue dates, and we would talk about all the kids that we wanted to have. She was like, "I want to have a lot of kids," and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Dude, I'm so down to be your friend who has a lot of kids with you. Like, we could do this together. Like, we're just friends. Who cares?"
Uh-huh.
And then when we got together, it was the same concept. She's like, "I want 4 kids." I was like, "Dude, I want 5. Let's just do it." And it wasn't that easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then with our little one, he has a congenital heart defect. So on top of everything, our firstborn has a congenital heart defect. So even after that, everyone could have had one. And anyway, so it was always really scary. And then now we looked at all of our kids yesterday. All 7 of them were at the house, and we were like, "Wow, this is
Be
the
careful what you
family
ask
we
for.
wanted." Yeah, exactly. It was just like, wow.
But
Yeah,
see, I love that. Like, it's not, family isn't, one way, or, you know what I mean?
yeah,
There's a new normal now, and that's
yeah,
what I love, like, it's not defined by, your bio, your genetics or whatever. Right.
yeah. It's
And,
really
and I
not.
say that all the time, like, blood is not thicker than water for me. And so
Me
that's
neither, girl.
something you show. And you're really living that blood is not thicker than water.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
love that because I call them selected family. I have a lot of selected family members because you can't choose them, and as you know, right? So, but I
You
can choose.
can't.
No, but I can choose. who's in my bubble and around me, and who I pour into, who
Yeah.
I receive from, or you know what I mean? So I love this little Brady
Yeah.
Bunch that you have.
Yeah. And
I
it's,
love
and
that.
for example, today, right, we have two co-parents. It's me and my wife, who my wife and I parent like we're seamless. Okay.
Hmm.
We do fight, we argue about some things, but for the most part we are pretty seamless. And so we are gonna actually have a meeting with the other two moms today. We're gonna sit, we're gonna calendar, we're gonna talk about, what are kind of the best ways that they want to do things, how would they want their certain things. And the three of us used to do it before anyway, and now we added my cousin, right? Or my wife's cousin. And
Uh-huh.
so now it's the four of us sitting together and really talking about parenting in a way
Wow.
that's really vulnerable. So, and being like,
Wow.
trust us. Like, I know we are not your baby daddies, so you need to trust us, right? You can't trust them,
Oh
but
my
you can
God.
trust us. And
Yes.
so but it really, and yeah, so the four of us are going to sit down and we're going to talk and probably meeting for an hour, and people are going to cry, and it's going to be great.
Wow.
Because
This
it,
might be your calling. Do you know that? Like having a foundation, having your
yeah,
own organization of something like this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you might go into this, might be more of something, that you do, like
yeah,
getting that educational background and getting any kind of certifications or license in this. I think this is what, once you master this, like seriously, I think which I know you can, once you overcome this and work this out, this
yeah.
is something you can offer, Hector, to the
You know
world.
what's, interesting that you say that. My wife and I, so my, we know somebody who's in like a women's program. She's a single
Mhm.
mom and has her kids in it and stuff. And it's an organization that like helps them get housing and helps them do all this stuff, and like really, and does therapy, does anger management, does all these, has all these resources. And I've never wanted to own more than one property. I'm not big on like being a
Mhm.
manager of properties. I don't care. I don't
Mhm.
care about property like that. But I did tell my wife, I was like, what I would do is I would absolutely open an organization and help single moms out and single
Yes,
dads. Like, I would totally
they
do
need
that
that.
because
Yes.
it's super important. I won't do it until I'm a doctor, because that is the goal, right? That
Okay.
is,
I'm not trying to turn you
I
from there. I'm just saying, like, this might be
but
your thing.
so my wife has worked in nonprofits for 25 years, and so she would be able to do it in a drop of time. And I've always wanted her to be an executive director or a founder of
Mm-hmm.
a nonprofit, because I think
Mm-hmm.
she just has that skill level. And and it's a good tax break, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about money. But yeah, I it is something that we've thought about, and her and I, my wife and I, have always thought about fostering kids, and especially queer children, because
Mm-hmm.
queer older kids don't get adopted. So like
Mm-hmm.
older sibling groups do not get adopted. Sibling
Right.
groups often get split up. But we've always wanted to foster. Both her and I were kicked out at a really early age, and so we kind of just lived our own for a long time. And so it's always been something we wanted. And I think I go be a doctor, but I think that is definitely a part of like, how do we change the world with the
Right.
little bit that I can. I
Yeah.
can't I can't fix global warming. I can
Right.
help do certain things, but I can't
Right.
fix it. But
Right.
changing like individual lives is always
Yeah.
more impactful, right?
Yes,
And
it
so part of
is.
wanting to part of me going into family medicine is that concept, changing individual lives. And also like fostering these kids is the same concept, making them better people, right?
I love
And
that.
so yeah, but yeah, that is a long-term goal for sure.
Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
that, Hector.
Yeah.
Well, you need to keep pushing, keep striving, and keep thriving.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It is.